artist. Most of you know me. I think everyone in here actually knows me. But for all the people that aren't here, anyway, welcome to my artist talk about Wild Whimsy of the Northwoods, the show that's on display. I'm really, really grateful to be here and super excited to MacRostie for having me. Thank you, Katie. Okay, so I'm going to start with a excerpt from the show. So I don't know if you guys know this, but all of the pieces have a story, and there's a bunch of paperwork back there. So if you want to, you can go ahead and pick one up. Each one of these pieces has a story. I'm going to start with the main piece. This is the title piece, Wild Whimsy of the Northwoods. And I'm going to just read you a little bit about it. So, all right. It is a lovely spring day in the Northwoods. The wild world is just a wall away. Exit through any exterior door, and you can explore the most interactive, all-encompassing adventure there is. Tune in and listen to the soft whisper of the leaves knocking together and the bugs and frogs creaking, the ruckus of rustling fauna in the underbrush, and the plentiful bird calls. If you let your body relax as it absorbs the moment, you can start to spot all the colors and textures. What seems to be mostly green at first can be broken into all the colors of the rainbow. The purple in the veins of a leaf, the orange gold of a leaf as the sun rays hit it, or the orange gold of low sun rays hitting green leaves, the pink in the quartz rock gravel underfoot. It is actually possible to observe the whole color spectrum if you just take a moment. The grating calls of the pileated woodpecker and the blue jay catch your attention, but the beauty of their plumage and the sweet calls of the other birds and frogs balance the stereo experience so well. If you pay attention, you can feel the annoyance of daily life slip away. You may be reminded of your wild side as you slip into a fuller, more grounding understanding of life. Sit in this feeling for a moment. Let the innate knowing of your belonging to the wild world take over. And consider that no matter how much we may try to tame ourselves or separate ourselves from the outdoors, we are still a part of the wild world. And in fact, humans have a large effect on shaping the wild landscapes and the quality of the outdoors. Every piece of trash chucked out a car window exists in the wild, blowing and floating into the woods, lakes, fields, poisoning the flora and fauna, changing the aesthetics of nature like dirty socks gathered in the living room. All our choices add up. They can be seen by humans when we venture out, but they are constantly felt and experienced by the flora and fauna that don't live indoors. We can keep the wild world whimsical, colorful, and vibrant by making the right choices. And getting a peek at some of the wild, today we are making the right choices, and we're getting a peek at some of the wild, whimsical flora and fauna that are keeping it real in the Northwoods. So I wanted to start with that because I wanted to set the scene for today, which is a beautiful spring day in the Northwoods, but also for the pieces themselves. The show itself goes clockwise, and it starts at 6:30 in the morning with those bluebirds, or those are not bluebirds, with the robins, and then it goes, beaver, chipmunk, moose, the bobcats here. This is kind of the whole day. It's lighter here, or it's either waking up in the morning or sunsetting, and this is like the blue of the normal day, like this right now. You got your deer, and I decided to end it with more birds, kind of the ones I see when I'm out and about by the lake, the mallard and the loon. And we went in the direction of the lake, and we ended with the beaver and the otter there at the end. So another interesting thing is that piece, the beaver and the otter piece, Aqueous Life is what it's called. That is one of the oldest pieces in the show, and the robins was finished just like 3 weeks ago. So it's one of the newer pieces in the show. So there's kind of a gambit of styles and ages as well. So I want the whole show to set a scene. I want you guys to feel like you're in a spring day or a variety of spring days, and I want you to feel that beauty of just being out there in the wild. I love to tell stories, which is why I wrote stories for each one of these things. Some of them turned out more like poems, some of them turned out like really long essays, and so those did not make it into the packet. This one right here was one of the longer ones that did make it into the packet, but I kind of had some cathartic experiences as I was writing the stories, so that was fun. I'll tell you a little bit more about that in a minute, but so now I'm going to tell my story. So you guys probably, if you know me, which all of you that are in here in this room do, you may know that I lived in Grand Rapids back in 2013. I also am a self-taught artist. I started off teaching myself how to draw with some, just everything. I started drawing with everything, with ink and pencil mainly, and I did a sweet set of comics, which I brought, so if you guys want to look at them later, I'll show you. But they're called Goshniks, and I used to do those back in the day. They're influenced by the Norman Rockwell, Lake Wobegon, This American Life, cute little essay thing. I kind of wanted to paint the American dream and what I thought life would be like as a human in the world if I were to live the American dream. Yeah, and they have the Whimsy of Dr. Seuss and Beatrix Potter in them. Anyway, I started with those, and I learned some good 3D cross-hatching. Not very good at shadows. There were no shadows in there other than the shading on the characters. But then I got into portraiture after that. So I got into doing portraits of humans and photorealistic stuff because I checked out a book from the library that showed me how. And that's how I actually got decent. But anyway, the reason I got good was because, not because I just practiced all the time. I didn't have a lot of time. I didn't do a lot of other things. I had a lot of time to just draw, so I did that a lot. I was one of those kids. Yeah, so I grew up pretty poor, which is one of the reasons I have a lot of time. One of the stories I tell when I'm talking about how poor we were, we had, when we stopped going to the laundromat, when I was about in 6th or 7th grade, we started washing clothes by hand in rainwater, because we didn't have running water at our house. So, yeah, we would use the detergent with the cold rainwater. We'd bring our stuff out on the sticks. It was so old school, and it really made my hands strong, which I think is one of the reasons I'm a good painter, and I'm probably gonna get arthritis early. But anyway, we also had no television, we had no phone, we had no internet. So we got all of our entertainment off the radio, a lot of KXC and NPR, both WPR, Wisconsin Public Radio, and our local Minnesota. And then I read a lot of books, a whole lot of books, a lot of them over and over again. And then I watched a lot of old school movies. I went from the silent movies up until current day movies, all of them. And then whatever was at the library. And so then I also listened to lots of different music from different decades. So I didn't know that I was weird or different in that way. I didn't know that I had a lot of different cultural references and that they were from different vantage points. I thought black and white movies were still made today when I was in high school. So it was, I think that, I know that that is where a lot of the weirdness in my art comes from, kind of the variety of styles. So you'll notice there's some pop art stuff, and I love that. And also, you know, like the zippy chippy back there, that one is the chipmunk with the radiating kind of like comic book style. Love that. Reminds me of old cartoons. Totally had those 6-hour-long cartoons. Just watch it straight through because you didn't have a cartoon station. I'm sure all the kids had those back in the day. I don't think James and Frank ever watched those.
Like the
6-hour-long VHSs.
No, but Netflix is the same.
Yeah.
If you forget about the kids, that you're on it.
Yeah, you got all the Woody Woodpecker and all of the old bad Mickey Mouse stuff. But anyway, yeah. So I think that's why I created kind of this weird style. But anyway, yeah. So though my current work is all very sweet, soft, and joyous, and I know that it is externally, I do want people to know, and I'm always trying to show people that it's actually filled with poignant undertones, and it's built up with a load of emotions. I have all these other things that, like any other human, we're all working through stuff. So a lot of these pieces have a little bit more of a deeper story. They're adorable, they're sweet, they're not very overly intense, because I did learn how to tell a good story with intense undertones by watching lots of really good film, and also watching the bad ones that were a little too weird. So I wanted to kind of tell you a little bit about some of those more intense pieces. For example, this one, the matriarch. It's the matriarch and the matriarch's cub are a set. They're two cubs, they're two bobcat cubs being watched by their mom. And so the piece itself, the mom, you can see that she has one ear pointed towards both of her cubs. And then she's got one pointed at us, and she's looking at us. And I kind of see her just staring us down. She's not going to let us mess with her cubs. But she's also separated by that cool rainbow weaving thing, which I just had someone ask me on Instagram, fallen log, and then there's the rose bushes, and so it's kind of like wild rose. And it's separating her from her cubs, and I've watched a lot of great moms. I used to live with a great mom, Leah, when I was here, and her 2 little cubs were my roommates. So I know a lot about, you know, cute little cubs and moms being protective. But my mom, I didn't have a mom. She died when I was 17, but before that, when I was taken away from her when I was about 3 or 4, and I lived with my dad. So it kind of captures that sadness and the rawness and the emotions of, you know, knowing, I know what good moms are. And what would have been if I'd had more experiences with my mom. But anyway, so that one's kind of about that. I love those little dog cats. I also love cats, so I mean it worked out. And then we have the wolf one over here. That one is about a friend who I lost to suicide. He passed away a few years ago, and the day that he passed away, the day that we found out he passed away, it was the first time we'd seen wolf tracks in our yard. And also when we were feeling our emotions, I was staring at the wood stove and there was corrugated steel behind it. And the corrugated steel was capturing the orange and the blue of the light hitting it from 2 different directions. And so, you know, kind of like tears in my eyes, the washing of the water, or the washing of the sky over the wolf, it's called Sunset Washes Over. Kind of captured those feelings of losing. I've lost multiple friends to suicide in my life. That one was pretty intense. I was going through some weird stuff at the time, and he was a good guy, and so the piece is kind of about that type of stuff. So it all seems sweet, it all seems soft, and I love that, but that is kind of how I express some of those more deeper, darker things. You know, getting back into my story quickly, I worked in, when I first got out of high school, I moved over to Bemidji, and I lived there for a few years, and I worked a couple of years, and I worked in with people with disabilities at their workplace and in their homes, and that was really awesome. Loved the people, loved it, but those people when you work in that staff or as a staff, you're not paid very much, and it's a lot of work. It's a lot of hard work. So I kind of got a little bit, you know, tired of that. So I moved on to trying to find something more exciting. I wanted to always have exciting, joyous, fun stuff because that's what I want to do. I want life to be good. So I moved on to, I decided I was going to go to Alaska in my truck. It was my rusty, trusty Ford Ranger, 1992 Ford Ranger. It was named Smokey for a good reason. So I was going to go to Alaska, but instead, when I was about a week out from making the trip, I came to the KC River Fest here in Grand Rapids, and I met Leah, who told me that she had a little extra bedroom and that MacRostie was hiring. And so that's how, so I ended up working here for a year. Leah's bedroom was a closet, a walk-in closet, which I learned after I moved in. But anyway, I got to live here for a while, and this was a really great spot to live. I was artist in residence here, and I worked with Castle Life Options, Northern Lights Community School, and other community groups. It was fun, interesting, it was good. It was better than going to Alaska in my old truck. So then in 2014, I decided to go have more adventures, so I took off on an 8-month motorcycle trip to the West Coast on my 2001 Suzuki Savage 650, which was much better running than my truck. And so I decided to go all the way around the country on my motorcycle, but I didn't make it that far. I only made it over to the West Coast. But so I headed west, hit up Washington, went along the border of California, and then I headed east and came back up along the River Road. And that was pretty fun. It was going to be a year. It got cut short because my grandpa got sick. And so 45 days of that was spent for my birthday, so around March. 45 of those days was spent, I flew back to South Dakota and I hung out there for a little while. And then after I was done hanging out there, I had to go back to get my motorcycle, I should say. So I went back to get my motorcycle, finished up the trip a little bit, but my grandpa died just a few days before I got back. So I was feeling a little weird. And so I'd already made plans to move back to Bemidji. I was hurt, sad, it was all got back into commissions and teaching and doing the things and trying to make it as an artist. And that's when I met my sweet Cassidy right there. He's my partner. I grew as a painter and I fell in love at the same time. And then we decided to buy land and build a home music and art studio in the forest, which is where I finished learning how to paint, and that's when these pieces started. So 2016 is when we decided to buy land. 2018 is when I started the work for this show. So there was a lot of decent work before that. That was the beginning phases of learning how to paint. So anyway, yeah, so that's how the show was born. I really started to notice how wild and whimsical our Minnesota was because I traveled to all these different places and it was interesting and they were really fun. But I wasn't looking close enough because I was just trying to travel before the rain hit the motorcycle again. So I was constantly moving. And when I got here, I slowed down and I looked at all the things. And then I realized, actually, there's so many pretty little things right here in the woods. Yeah, so that's something I've always kind of tried to notice as a small things, but I got better at it after I was done traveling and adventuring. And that's when I started to dig deep into noticing those things. I also started to notice a little bit of the things that we can do, as humans can do to help shape the way that things are on the planet and stuff. And so when I was thinking about, you notice the litter in the ditch, which I mentioned in my opening statements. You notice like the gum on the ground or the things that can't be digested by animals that just exist. I noticed that bothered me. So instead of just being bothered by the things that using things that bothered me that I didn't want to see, I decided instead of being just annoyed that I'd start to paint the animals that might also be annoyed to get out some of those feelings. So that's why I wanted humans to see the animals for what they are. You get your little chipmunk over there with its cheeks full, and you've got the raccoon over there eating a fish. Those are the things they want to be eating. They're happy when they're out in the woods eating. They don't like eating the garbage. So I was trying to say that as nicely as possible with my cute stuff, but it's not just that. One thing I think of is like Dr. Seuss said with the Lorax, I speak for the trees. I kind of wanted to be a person who spoke for the trees. I wanted people to think about how they might want to speak for the trees too if they look at my work. So my hope is that if you speak for the trees, I hope you're emboldened to do so louder, and I hope that if you don't yet speak for the trees, that you'll feel like speaking for the trees afterwards. So so then that's that. I spend hours painting my studio, and I just layer all this stuff up. So all of it is just a bunch of layers of stuff. I start with I don't start with a sketch. I don't start with a thumbnail. I just start with painted lines, like messy little painted lines, and from there I end up building up. I often have an idea of the subject. A good example is the moose. I knew I wanted to paint a moose. Knew I wanted to paint lady slippers. So I decided to start with the moose, and moose are really hard to paint. So he started to grow, and then his lady slippers grew, and then as I had to think about how to paint the moose properly, I came to the idea that there should be spring peepers and little yellow flowers, and eventually as I'm painting him and he was making me mad because it's so hard to paint a moose, I realized there had to be a bullseye, and then it was just a pun, and that's how they kind of just grow. And it took about a year to paint that piece. That's how they go. So they start with a weird doodle with paint, sometimes a concept of the subject, and then they just grow and they grow and they grow. And one technique I use for painters out there, I use a mix of thick and thin paint, and then I use different amounts of glazes over the top. So you'll see that there's a lot of colors on the moose's face, and that's just because of the way that I added paint layer after paint layer after paint layer, and sometimes I wasn't mixing the same color. Another thing I do is I don't mix my paints in my palette, I mix them on my canvas. So if I know I'm gonna get a brown, I add a little bit of magenta, I add a little bit of gold, and maybe a little bit of purple, and then I just go for it. And so some spots of things' faces are pinker than others, which is one of the more, trying to work out that pink. But anyway, so there's that. So that's kind of my story. I've been working, like I said, I've been working on the show since 2018. So it's a good one. I hope you guys like it. I was wondering, do you guys have questions for me? Because I would love to take your questions. Yes, Katie.
I'd like to know more about the flora and fauna that you have included in the pieces, like how you kind of come up with which ones you want to put in, and just a little bit more about that.
Okay, and so for this specific show, the flora and fauna are supposed to be local. That was the pitch to MacRostie. So I was based on like what they would actually be in. For example, all of those ones, the deer, the campion, the harebell, and the wild lettuce would be found kind of in a ditch, which that piece is kind of about a deer that ran out of the ditch and hit our vehicle the one time. can read about that in that description over there. But anyway, so that's like kind of that. And then, I don't know, so it's kind of, and then the lettuce love is a good one because we just drove past a spot with all this gravel and this, that's the bunny, by the way. Lettuce love is the bunny with the sunshine. But anyway, we just drove past this spot that just had a little bit of clover and a little bit of dandelion greens over there by KXE as we were coming back from the river. And it's just gravelly and brown like that. And that's exactly what I envisioned when I painted it. I probably saw a snapshot of that and then went home and decided to do that brown with a little bit of green and a bunny that blended in. So it's kind of whatever it would actually be around them. The one behind Katie, the robin one, that one was thought through a lot. So these are all spring flowers. But they had to coordinate because it was a rainbow. So I don't know if those ones technically grow beside each other all the time, but there's strawberries, and then there's the other ones that I can't name off the top of my head right now. That would get me closer. But anyway, and then you get your daisies. So it's all about like what would actually be in that area. That's how they get there, Katie. Did that answer your question?
It did, thank you.
Good, yes. Anyone else have any questions or thoughts? Yes.
Do the background designs have any particular significance, like the orange geometric here and the blue spot, the blue lines on those?
Yes. So yes, they do. They're very similar to what I used to draw when I used to doodle in my notebooks. So I teach art. So when I'm teaching kids, I notice that they often have these patterns they go back to that they've always been doing, that they've been doing since maybe they were 5 till the time that they're 12. They just keep doing the same patterns. Well, I used to do curly cues and I used to do zigzags, and my particular design of zigzags. And then polka dots are just, obviously everyone draws polka dots when they're bored because it takes, and I love circles and I love shading them. So I think what happens is when I'm in the zone and I'm in my studio just hanging out, I just feel this need to add something because it's not done, and then I kind of let whatever design pop into my head, and that's what happens. These circles came way after I just, on the matriarch, for example, the circles on the mom piece, they came almost when it was done, but I knew it wasn't finished, and so there they went, and it was the only thing, it just popped into my head that I was going to add circles when I did, and good thing I thought it worked because right over the top of the other designs I've done once before. So it's kind of that. I also really, my very favorite thing about that orange one is I started to explore what with the bears, the orange design, I started to explore what it would look like if you added green that was light to the inside of the, there's different tones of green in there, and it kind of made the orange look like it was growing too, which I thought was really cool. So I kept going. I thought about deleting it, and I kept it there. Anyway, Leo, do you have a question?
Yeah, I've actually got a couple, but do you delete a lot? I mean,
Yeah.
were there things in the paintings that have been eliminated? And if there were, what were they, or why did you take them out?
Oh, well, it's a good question. I do delete a lot. I do paint over a lot of things. I'm not sure. Because I get so many layers, I don't even remember what I normally have. But like the mallard over there, that was gonna have like a whole bunch of flowers, and it didn't work. It just didn't work with the pretty colors and the rainbows of the sunset. So parts of it got removed. I can't remember what they were. There might be a photo somewhere that proves it. But if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. Another good one is the star-nosed mole in the back. That's one of my very favorite pieces. It combines kind of a creepy critter with a really beautiful scene, and I love that. But anyway, that one had a whole bunch of different flowers that were going to go on the left side, and instead I opted for this just to do the white flowers and then go with mushrooms, because mushrooms would glow at night. Other flowers don't really, they're closed. So I don't know. That's kind of it. I don't know. Just in the moment, sometimes I just don't like something. Cassidy will walk over and be like, "Why'd you get rid of that? That was good." I don't know. It was bad. Anyway, what was the other question?
So the other one's about the design.
Yeah.
So you talk about, like learning to paint, and you're talking about kind of like, the technical part of it, but there's a really heavy element of design in all of your work. and the work that you've done that I've seen that has writing as part of it, the design is so like awesome and massive. And these have that. They have that like strong design. And I know it can be really intuitive for artists, but I mean, do you think about it consciously?
Well, that's a good question. Especially, Leah's referring to some of that older work I would have done when I was living with her and I was learning how to be a better artist. At that time I had, now I'm a graphic designer. I've always kind of been an illustrator, but now I'm a graphic designer and I do that as a day job as a marketing coordinator at Headwaters Music and Arts in Bemidji. But anyway, so I know now that I consciously think about it a little bit. That's probably why I added the bullseye to the mooses. It probably just didn't look good up in the top without something. But yeah, I think I've really done the comics lately, comic art. I don't read them, I look at them for the pictures. So I think that's one of the reasons that they have the look. I think it more comes intuitively that I know it's going to be a decent design, which makes me really happy that that's how my brain works. And then I don't, when it seems like it's strange, like with the chipmunk, I just kind of embrace it. If it feels strange, I embrace it. It's basically because Leah used to tell me that every time I wrote something on a piece of paper and just doodled something, she'd be like, this is really good. So then I gained the confidence to just keep doing what I was doing. This is a good example. I have mixed feelings about how I felt about this when I finished it. I've been working on it for a very, very long time. And when I was getting ready to pack it up to bring it here, it was turned on its side because it was too big to like leave like that on the floor. So I had it turned sideways and then leaning up against a chair. And I realized sideways that this composition right here with the curve looks really good sideways. So if it looks really good sideways, no wonder people like it when it's straight on. I've just gotten so used to staring at it for too long that I lost my train of thought on it. But anyway, so it just kind of, I guess it happens. I think that's how our brains work though. Like even when I was talking about little kids who like art usually know what looks good. So it usually looks decent. As long as they don't get told it doesn't look good and then they lose their train of thought. So yeah, that's a good question though, Leah. I'll think about that more. Does anyone else have anything for me? I'd love to answer more questions. Where do we have to go? Okay.
Have you seen all these animals?
It's a good question, Mary Therese. I haven't seen Badger. I've been talking about that all the time lately. So whenever we hear a rustle in our woods, we live deep in the trees. Every time we hear a rustle, I'm like, is it a badger, Cassidy? Do you think it's a badger? We haven't seen a badger yet. I think they're supposed to be pretty cute to see them in real life. I haven't seen a bobcat in real life either, though. That would be something I'd love. I actually have mixed feelings about whether I'd want to see a bobcat in real life. Has anyone else seen a bobcat in real life here? What? Were they crossing the road, or what were they doing? What were they doing?
Sitting beside the road, staring at me.
This is where I see photos from them. They're either that or on trail cams. Oh. Yeah, I haven't seen one. Then, I haven't seen a star-nosed mole. I think I've seen, so, fun fact, star-nosed moles swim in the water. They build tunnels to the water. They build lots and lots of tunnels, and then they have a tunnel going out into the water, and then they can swim. And they swim, and they both eat bugs underground, but they also eat bugs and tiny fish, and I think something else. Oh yeah, they eat leeches, and then like little larvae. They eat that in the water, so they swim. And apparently, because of the way that their legs move, it's kind of a zigzag motion because they've got these fat little chunky legs. I think I've seen those swimming before, but I didn't know what they were when I was a kid. So I just would have never imagined it was an actual mammal. I would have thought it was a turtle or something. The turtle's on now. Nerves. But anyway, so yeah, that one I would love to see and know what it was. But yeah, I think that those two might be. I've never seen a moose. I really want to see a moose.
You need to see it.
I would love to see a moose. I don't know where they are. You have to go up to International Falls. So they've been in Grand Rapids. I've seen photos that people took. They were over by the nursing home a few years ago. Kyle Hedlund took a photo of them over by the nursing home.
Are they still on Iowa Royal?
I don't know. Are they? Maybe I need to go over there.
I saw one in Bemidji.
You did? Was it the one at the lake?
No, I didn't see that. That was a good story
That
though.
was a good story. Where did you see it?
It was crossing the Lund's Field out, is that out 7?
Okay.
It was like a big cornfield. It was just
Oh.
crossing the field.
Of course it was crossing the
Cornfield, yeah.
I mean, you go to buy more of the cornfields, they're probably in the trees. I've had high hopes that I saw moose tracks, and then when I post them to Facebook to ask the season watching people, I've been pointing I'd love to see a moose. But yeah, oh, and an otter. I don't know if I've ever seen a river otter, but I've definitely seen sea otters. So that would be. Have you seen otters? Yeah. I haven't lived enough life, you guys, to see all these pictures. But yeah, so that's a good question, Patrice. I haven't seen all of these flowers either, and I've also never seen the Luna moth, which is a dream of mine. And so I have not seen all the butterflies either. I just know what they look like because I have a butterfly book, and so I looked them up for reference photos on the computer to finish getting what. Oh, that's what they look like when they're not kind of pixely and stuff. So.
Have you painted a skunk? So
I-
everything else is Minnesota.
I started a skunk, and then I was going to do a skunk for this show, and then I decided that Cassidy was like, Diamond, skunks wouldn't be everyone's favorite. Maybe yours are more favorite. And I made a starter bowl, which is so creepy. So skunk is next. I love skunks. I have seen skunks. Skunks are funny. Do you like skunks?
Well, I don't like their smell, but.
They're cute, aren't they?
Yeah, and they run kind of weird.
They really are so slow and funny looking, just like porcupines. You're just like, why do you look like a ball of something? Like, why don't you run better than that? It's because they're stinky, so they don't have to run. Good question, yeah. I don't know, I also just painted my very latest finished piece, which I snuck into my bag. It's a painted turtle, which I wanted to get to the show, but I didn't. So I finished this painted turtle, which I thought was a funny pun because I love puns. I'm a slow painter, and painted turtles are slow, so there's gonna be more painted turtles in my life. But I just finished this guy, and he was the first turtle I painted that wasn't a doodle turtle. Like, he was my first real.
He's sweet.
He's sweet.
Aw.
He's got the butterfly that's over there, the cloud. No, those are pink edge clouded sulfurs. There's another clouded sulfur in here somewhere, I think.
That's beautiful little painting.
Thank you. That's it. So often I paint things just so I can learn about them. So like I haven't read enough about painted turtles since I started painting one because I thought I knew enough. But I'm gonna go read about them. But I learned about what clouded sulfurs are and how there's a variety of them. So when you see all these yellow butterflies, I didn't know they were all different. I thought they were all the same. So I've been trying to explore them more. But that's the same thing how I learned about the star-nosed moles. I decided that would be a cool one to paint, and then I started reading up on it, and it became. I'm good. That's how I took notes. That's why I doodled a lot when I was in school. I take notes. I doodle while I listen, so then I learn better. So I think when I read about things and I paint it right after, it gets back stuck in my brain that normally wouldn't be there. So I don't know. Does anyone have a favorite one that they have? I love asking you guys what your favorites are. Yes, James.
I like the moose one.
You do. A lot of people like this one. It's like the sweet side of. I see that one as the sweet side of being a dude, so I can see how James is like that. This sweet masculine. Love that.
Otter with the moon.
Yes.
Swimming in a circle.
I love that one still holds up.
Yeah, beautiful.
Thank you. What's your favorite, Cassidy?
That's tough. I like a lot. I like all of them.
That's what he puts every time I ask.
Come on.
I've been watching them together for so long, yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, you guys are. I can let us all go if we're ready. I think it's been wonderful. Thank you for making me not be so nervous. so nervous coming here. It wasn't as bad as I thought. Yes, Frank.
I like the matriarch's cup one.
The little come off to the side. Yeah. Oh, I do like that one. He was actually the last one to get done. So. Yeah, I finished him like 3 days before I delivered him. Yeah. So thank you for having me, Katie. I loved being able to be here. This is my very first gallery solo exhibit. I had solo exhibit, I've never been in a gallery, so I thought it was super important. I've been building it up in my head as something I was gonna wait to do till which is what you should do so your application is good. But I was gonna wait to apply till I 100% knew I had something that I liked. And I only wanted to apply here first, so I'm really glad that I got in. So
Do you have a favorite of the pictures?
Yeah. No. Star-nosed mole and the bears. Those are my two favorites.
Yeah, I know.
I think the raccoon's also my favorite. And then this one's also my favorite. I know, it depends on my mood. But I've been sticking with the star-nosed moles and the bears for a few weeks now, so I think that's where I'm at. They're really like the robins. I don't know. It is what it is.
So
So we got a question there. Say, what is the title of the piece behind you?
This one,
Yes.
The Wild Whimsy of the Northwoods, so it's the title, the show title. What's that called? What's the theme? The theme, yeah, the main title piece, the title piece.
Mm.
Like a album. That's a good question. This one's called Hold Up. This is about being stuck in COVID.
I knew that was my favorite for a reason.
I love that that's your favorite. But also, yes, it's totally about like, yes, look at how nice the sky looks when we're not inside. And let's be brave enough to get outside, I guess, maybe. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.